Chapter 1. The funeral with no seat for me. There were 56 chairs lined up for the funeral. I counted them because it was the only thing I could control while everyone else cried. Jessica had insisted on the silver-trimmed folding ones. They photograph better, she said. But only 55 were filled. The one beside her, the one reserved for me, stayed empty. She told the usher not to seat me there. Said it would be complicated. Complicated. Like mourning your father while secretly texting your attorney about divorce. Filings isn't already complicated. So I stood in the back. Not beside her, not with family, not even among the cousins twice removed. I stood next to a ficus tree and a woman who once dated her uncle in the 90s. The funeral program spelled my last name wrong. Nobody offered me a tissue. And when Jessica stood to speak about her father, Richard Whitmore, oil baron, king of Connecticut money, she didn't mention me. Not once. Not in the survivors list. Not in the thank yous. Not even with a sideways glance. When the service ended, Jessica accidentally dropped her handkerchief right in front of me. I bent to pick it up, and that's when I saw the edge of a folded legal document inside her clutch. My name, in bold, next to a case number. She'd filed for divorce before the funeral, before the flowers, before the eulogy, before pretending she still loved me, and in 2 days, she would inherit $250 million, or so she thought. Chapter 2. The will reading. The Whitmore estate in Greenwich, Connecticut, stood behind wrought iron gates and whispers. I wasn't invited through the front. They directed me to the side entrance, the one for caterers. Inside, the study looked like an Ivy League boardroom. Dark leather chairs, mounted animal heads, and a grandfather clock that had ticked through 3 wars. Jessica was already there in slate gray. No black now. Mourning period officially over. And beside her sat the same polished stranger from the funeral. The lawyer shuffled in with a manila envelope and cleared his throat. As legal representative of the late Mr. Richard Whitmore, I will now read his final instructions. Jessica tilted her head like a queen awaiting her crown. To my daughter, Jessica Elaine Whitmore, I leave the sum of $1 million to be managed by the family trust. She blinked once, then forced out, "Did you mean 100 million?" "No," the lawyer replied flatly. 1 million. The rest of the estate, 2 Rhode Island mansions, a Fifth Avenue apartment, an Aspen chalet, 3 cars worth more than my entire childhood neighborhood, and $250 million in liquid assets, went to me, Daniel Brooks, the man she'd already discarded. I left before the paperwork ended. Jessica chased me down the marble steps, heels clicking like bullets. "Daniel," she called, but I kept walking through the gates. 2 days later, she found me at the depot, where I still showed up to clock in. She leaned against her BMW like nothing had happened. Her eyes weren't sad. They were hungry. "You don't deserve this, Daniel," she whispered in the break room. "This isn't your world. You'll get eaten alive. Let me help you divide it." Realistically. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I didn't know how else to keep my hands from shaking. A mistake that lasted too long, she snapped when I refused. That line carved itself into my bones. Chapter 3. The clause. The next morning, a younger estate attorney called me in. "Mr. Brooks, you'll want to see this yourself." Buried inside the inheritance papers was an addendum. Nearly 40% of the estate was locked in trust, but only if I remained divorced from Jessica for at least 18 months. If I went back to her, married or not, I'd forfeit it all. Every cent would be redirected to a sanctuary for abandoned dogs in Vermont. Attached was a handwritten note from Richard Whitmore. "Daniel, if you're tempted to return to the cage, remember, you were never the pet. She only knew how to feed you. Don't let her leash you again." Chapter 4. Secrets in the library, the suspicion, the leverage. Days later, I found printed emails buried in miscellaneous correspondence. Jessica had tried to erase that clause. She'd begged trustees to approve document destruction. And then came the video. A flash drive hidden behind a false panel in the Whitmore Library, labeled in Richard's handwriting. Library, July 10th. Final record. It showed Jessica pacing, furious, calling me weak, humiliating, unworthy. Richard sat behind his desk, silent until he leaned forward. "You made your choice," he said coldly. "You left him before I was even gone. I rewrote the will. You always thought love was leverage. But Daniel never asked me for anything. He never took a dime, even when I tried to push him away." Jessica froze. Panic flickered across her face. "This isn't love," she hissed. "This is punishment." "No," Richard said. "This is protection." In a sealed envelope marked private, Richard had left one final note. "I don't believe I will die by nature's hand alone. I know my daughter. I know what she's capable of when desperate. After she visited, I fell ill. Dizzy spells, chest pains. She gave me a tea. I never touched it again. If you're reading this, Daniel, promise me one thing. Don't let her walk away untouched. It wasn't proof, but it was enough." Security logs confirmed Jessica had entered Richard's private quarters 7 times between midnight and 4 a.m., the weekend before he died. 7 times. When I confronted her, Jessica didn't even pretend innocence. "What do you want?" she finally asked, voice thin, cornered. "Nothing," I said. "No money. No silence. No protection. You'll spend the rest of your life wondering if I'll go to the police." For the first time, her voice broke. Chapter 5. The fall licks months later, Jessica Whitmore stood in court. Estate attorneys laid out the evidence, the attempted tampering, the document destruction, the suspicious purchases of cleansing powders. The judge upheld every clause of Richard's will. Jessica walked out with nothing, not a dime, her share redirected to charities named as alternates in case of moral compromise within the family. And me? I didn't buy a yacht, didn't move to Paris. I rented a cabin near a lake in upstate New York, adopted 2 senior rescue dogs from that very sanctuary, and started showing up once a week to help. Funny how one bitter clause turned into the only peaceful place I've ever known. The final chapteral, a different kind of wealth. Sometimes people ask if I miss her. The truth is, I don't miss the lies. I don't miss the weight of her contempt. But sometimes I miss the ghost of who I thought she was. And then I remember Richard's words. Protection, not punishment. Jessica once sent me a final note, unsigned. "You ruined everything. I let the dogs chew it to pieces, because she was wrong. I didn't ruin everything. I saved what was left of me. And that was worth far more than $250 million.